Hi, I'm Julia Hankins from Julia Hankins Wellbeing and also the founder of Wellbeing Adventurers. And I each week record a video and write a blog to support children's wellbeing practitioners. And this week it's a bit different. It's a bit of a vulnerable share this week because I'm going to be talking all about the three biggest mistakes that I've made in my business and also what they've taught me. And so if this is something that you're interested in, then keep watching. So the first thing that I would say is a really big mistake that I made in my business is putting too much emphasis on the opinions of others. And so for much of my life, actually, especially in my business, I've had the habit of assuming that other people know better than I do. Experts, mentors, business coaches. I thought that their advice would be like the truth, and I just ignored my inner voice. And so I just want to be really clear now. So learning from others is really vital. It's really, really important. Growth and development are central to what we do, and we should always be learning. But there's a difference between learning from other people and then handing over your power and everything that is true for you over to other people. And so for me, this started, or it showed up when I started niching down. And so every business coach seemed to be saying, you need to find your niche. And I think I didn't have one. And then I felt like that was wrong because everybody else seemed to have one. And everyone seemed to think that I had too many niches, too many people who I served, because I was working with adults, with parents, with schools, with children, with other kids' yoga teachers. And other business coaches were saying that's just too much. And so I narrowed down. And so I went down right to just children's wellbeing and then even further to just schools based work. And while niching can absolutely be very useful for you to figure out what it is that you do and how it is you help people, I didn't actually take any time to reflect, does this actually fit me? Does this niche really truly reflect who I am and what it is I want to share? And so I ignored my personality, I ignored my circumstances, I ignored the truth about who I am and how I show up in the world. And I didn't pay any attention to what truly lights me up. And I made business decisions that didn't align with my needs or my values. And I just lost my way a bit. And I've done that a few times because of following, what is the right thing to do according to, businessy people and business coaches. And like, I don't regret this. I don't have any regrets for it because they were lessons, and they taught me an important truth, and that is that it doesn't matter how wise an expert is or how much experience or knowledge they have. Only you know what's right for you. And it's crazy that I'm saying this now because I say this in all of my classes. I say this with children, I say this with adults, that I can share some things with you, but only you are the expert for you, and only you know what's right for you and your body. And yet I ignored it myself. So yeah, that was my mistake number one. My second biggest mistake is comparing myself to others. So comparison's a bit of a tough one for me to really reflect on because I don't see myself as competitive. I've never really been someone who wants to beat anyone, and I've always been very much collaboration over competition. But saying that, I have compared myself to others. I've seen what other wellbeing practitioners are doing, and I've thought, well, maybe I should do that. They're doing this particular class, maybe I should do that type of class. They're doing this particular event, maybe I should do that too. And while experimenting is truly how I learn best, like my natural set is trial and error, and it always has been, and that's just who I am. There was just too much of looking at other people, and it left me shoulding all over myself. A good friend of mine says that, don't should all over yourself. So it all also made me feel less than when I compare myself to others. It always makes me feel less than. Even if my goals are completely different to somebody else's goals, I'm not interested in having a six-figure business or having a flash car or a big house. Those just aren't goals of mine. That's not what's important to me. Not that there's anything wrong with those. They're just not my goals. But when I find myself comparing myself to other people, I do find myself chasing things that aren't really right for me. And then that makes me feel really small. And sometimes I'd find myself mimicking other people's ways of doing things, and I'd notice myself copying their tone or their format or their approach. And I think that's probably my neurodivergent brain that was doing that, trying to seek other people's structure and make sense of it. But it always just left me feeling like a failure when it didn't fit me, because of course it wouldn't fit me because it wasn't me. And so this leads me on to mistake number 3. I think that mistake number 1 and number 2 have led to number 3, and that is trying to be somebody that I'm just not. And so every time that I ignored my own rhythm, my own energy, my creative flow, and every time I tried to fit a mold of what somebody else said was the right way to do something, I just lost my authenticity. I lost what makes sense and what is true for me. And that just doesn't end well for me at all. As a neurodivergent person, authenticity, couldn't even say it then, authenticity, it's not a preference, it's essential, and it's something that I need for my own mental health, to be true to myself and to do things that are true for me. And so when I try to be somebody who I'm not, so when I try and fit in with somebody else's way of doing things that don't work for me, I just feel disconnected and I feel stuck, and it becomes hard to promote my work. It becomes hard for me to even talk about my work because it just doesn't feel like my work anymore. And so I've learned a lot of things about myself that actually don't fit into a lot of other what business coaches or business mentors promote. I've learned that I'm inconsistent. Everybody says you need a consistency, and I am not a consistent person. That is not who I am. I have ebbs and flows of energy. Some days I can conquer the world and have loads of power and energy and a creative flow, and then other days I just don't have that energy at all, and that's okay. It's taken me a while to realize that, but it is actually okay. I mean, I may appear consistent in the way that I share stuff, so on YouTube and also in my newsletters and also on my website, I share my blogs and my videos very consistently week after week, but it's not a consistent way that I do that. Sometimes I'll do them all in one big bulk, and sometimes I do this bit first and then this bit. It just has to fit towards me. And so full-time delivery in schools, which is, that should be a sensible option for me, that doesn't work. That doesn't fit. It just doesn't work for me. Like, I do have my regular schools, but I couldn't work full-time in a school repeatedly doing the same thing over and over again. That just doesn't work with my inconsistent approach to life. Another thing that is true for me is that I'm really creative and expansive, and so niching down just felt really suffocating and really limiting for me when I'm somebody who is like a web. I'm like, this connects to this, and this connects to this, and this connects to this, and I can draw this over here. And that kind of connective, creative energy is who I am. And so me going, oh, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that, I just felt like I was cutting parts of myself off. And another thing is that I learned through experience, and I've mentioned that before, but following somebody's 5-step plan doesn't work for me. I have to experience it. I have to figure it out and try it and it not work for me to find my own stuff. I need to explore and adapt, and I need to follow what sparks joy for me and what helps me be curious, and that's what works for me. And when I honor those parts of myself, my work just feels alive again. And that's why you'll see that I've stopped niching down and I'm back onto being Julia Hankins Wellbeing rather than Julia Hankins Children's Wellbeing Consultant. I've come back to Julia Hankins Wellbeing because it feels expansive and freeing for me to be able to deliver things that feel right for me. And at the moment, that's in addition to my work in schools, in addition to the trainings that I deliver, I also still want to deliver wellbeing workshops for adults too. And so you might be wondering, why am I sharing this? All my mistakes, all my messy bits. Why is Julia doing this? What's it all about? And so for me, it's part of some self-discovery work that I'm doing on myself. It's about shame. And so I really love Brené Brown and her teachings on shame. And she talks about shame and says that we all experience it, but the less that we talk about it, the more power it has over us. And nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about these messy, uncomfortable things. And so here is me shining a light on my own shame, the parts of me in my business that whisper to me that I'm not enough, and that I can't be successful, and that I should have it all figured out, and it's not worth sharing if it's not perfect. And I think that when I speak about these things, or I know that when I speak about things, I claim it, and I claim it as my story, and then owning it as my own story means that I can accept myself a bit more. And that's what I'm doing. It's this kind of selfish thing on my behalf, because this is me owning my story and the mistakes that I've made, so that I can take some of my power back and not be hiding in the shame of it all. And perhaps it helps you too. Maybe you see a bit of yourself in these reflections. Maybe some of the things that I've said you feel too. Perhaps you sometimes put a bit too much weight on others' opinions, or perhaps you find yourself comparing yourself or trying to be someone that you're not. And so if you are doing these things, I just want you to know you're not alone. And sharing our vulnerabilities makes us braver and reminds us that we're all learning as we go. And so this is me passing over to you now. I would really love to hear your thoughts. If you've watched this whole video, well done to you. What mistakes have you made in your own businesses? And what truths about you really shape your work? Let's keep this conversation open. So keep commenting on the video, or emailing me, or commenting on the blog, because when we stop hiding those things that just make us human, really, we then take away their power, and then we become more powerful and more successful in our own businesses. And that's what I want for me, and that's what I want for you too.